grab my collar. Hello and welcome back to another book video. My name is Chelsea and today I'm gonna go through my most anticipated new releases for 2024. I have a list of mostly fantasy and romance books that are set to come out this year. And it's going to be a really fun year, it looks like. We've got quite a bit coming out the first half of the year. I don't know if we have more coming out later, but everything I found was kind of in the first half of the year. So I'm glad you're here and let's get started. So the first book I made a list just so I could organize them by date that they are releasing. First one's a little bit of a cheat, only because it came out right at the end of last year, but I'm just including it with 2024. And that is, I already have a copy, Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. I am so excited. This is the sequel to Divine Rivals, which is a fantasy romance book that I read last year and really, really loved. It had great fantasy elements to it and the romance was just amazing. I'm really excited to dive into this one, hopefully soon. Hopefully it doesn't have too sad of an ending because the ending of the last one was a little crazy. I really like Rebecca Ross's writing style. I also read River Enchanted by her a few months ago too, and she just does a really good job with romance. I really liked Divine Rivals. It was such a sweet story that kind of crept up on you. It was a rivals to lovers fantasy romance that's set in a time period that feels sort of World War II-y, but there's a God's war going on, and we follow Iris, who is trying to take care of her mother that has some addictive issues, and her brother's off fighting in the war. And she tries to write to him, and she's using a magical typewriter to try to reach out to him because she hasn't had communication with him in a long time, and she misses him and she's worried about him. And then someone else responds back to her, and then they end up having a back and forth that way. And I also just really liked the rivals to lovers part of this book. She's a writer, like a newspaper journalist, and she works with this guy who she hates. And he also has his own stuff going on, but they both end up going to the front lines of the war to be journalists. And yeah, the love story just goes from there, and it's super sweet. The only thing I didn't love about the first book, and I'm hoping the second book has a little more just more explanation of some of the fantasy elements. I really liked the typewriter. The typewriter stuff, we didn't get too much explained there. And also they briefly talked about like the gods and the war and all of that, but I hope they get a little deeper into it. And the way the last book left off was pretty devastating. So I really hope there's a happy ending here because I'm really, really excited to read this. I just loved the rivals to lovers is one of my favorite tropes, and she wrote it so well, and it was just so sweet. Will their love end the war or break the world? Oh boy, this is going to be intense. I can't wait to start this one. Rebecca Ross is a really great writer. Hopefully I can read the second book in the River Enchanted series too, because I haven't gotten to that yet. But this one's pretty much at the top of my list. Hopefully next month sometime I'll be able to read it. So the next book comes out January the 9th. It is The Atlas Complex by Olivia Blake. And I'm excited to read this book, but I'm not sure, how do I want to word this? I have an interesting history with this series. It's the third of the Atlas 6 series. I read the first book a while ago, and I actually really enjoyed this first one, and then the second one kind of lost me. The first one, I just was really intrigued. It was such a fun premise. There's 6 different magicians who have all a different power set and just kind of wildly different characters. And they're chosen to be part of this secret society called the Alexandria Society. And they're kind of like, again, working with each other, but against each other, all the different POVs, I just thought it was such a fun story, and it really like was interesting and different. And even the characters that I didn't like that much, I was really interested in their story. But then, like I said, the second one kind of fell flat for me, and I just didn't care about anybody. So I am interested to see how the third one falls. If I end up liking it or not, maybe she can turn things around, because it was just such a good premise and such good characters. I don't know what really happened in that second book. I enjoy Olivia Blake's writing. I really loved Alone with You in the Ether. And One for My Enemy was like one of my favorite books ever. So hopefully I'll like the third one, and that's going to be the third and I believe final book for this series. Okay, so next up we have Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands by Heather Fawcett, coming out January 16th. So right around the corner. This is the sequel to Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, which I found to be so enjoyable. It's very different from any other fantasy or fantasy romance that I've read, and I really found it just interesting and enchanting, a little whimsical. It's about Emily Wilde is a Cambridge professor, and she's writing the first ever Encyclopedia of Fairies. So she's out going to study different fairies all over the world. And there's a really nice slow burn romance in this, but the romance isn't like the main part of the book. And I think one of the reasons I really liked this story was just the fae in it are different from what I see in a lot of these books, where they're more folklore based and they're more evil to humans, and I just find myself thinking about this book every so often. I just was really intrigued by it, and it was a little slow at first, the pacing, but once you got into it, it had a bit of a cozy fantasy vibe, which was nice. And yeah, like I said, there was just a different element to it of having her studying the fairies, which I found really interesting, and then the love interest I enjoyed as well. She's a really fun character too, just because she's a bit different. She's more of a academia focused, introvert, kind of like a Hermione Granger type. So I'm just really excited to be able to read this second book. I just love this cover so much. So hopefully I love the second one as much as I love this one. Of course, we have my most anticipated book of the year is less than a month away, you guys. This is crazy. So the next Crescent City book is coming out, House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J. Maas. This is just a 5-star prediction. I don't know what's in store for us. I can't believe it's just a few weeks away. I don't think I have to say too much on this, but I'm just so excited for this. I love everything from Sarah J. Maas. She got me back into reading. And Bryce and Hunt are some of my favorite characters ever. They're like my favorite couple in the Sarah J. Maas universe. I love them so much, and they will hopefully end up together. I can't imagine it any other way. And so I just can't wait for this book to come out. We're almost there. And yeah, just definitely, I can't imagine this book not being 5 stars. It's just gonna be amazing. Then we have Bride by Ali Hazelwood coming out February 6th. This is one of 2 books by Ali Hazelwood that I am very excited about for this year. She generally, at least what I've read from her, are more romantic comedies set in like an academic STEM world. Mostly what I've read by her are her popular book series that are her STEM novels that are romantic comedies set in a academic and like science world, and I really enjoyed all the couples and everything. She's really good at writing romantic comedies. This though, however, looks very different. It's a dangerous alliance between a vampire bride and an alpha werewolf becomes a love deep enough to sink your teeth into. So that sounds amazing. I just love the vibe of that. I love vampire werewolf tales. I just think it'll be really interesting to see how she does writing a story like that, because it just sounds very different from her typical writing of the rom-coms, but she's one of my favorite authors. So when I saw this, I was just like, it absolutely has to be on this list. So then we have Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, and that comes out April 2nd. I read 2 books by Abby Jimenez last year. I read Yours Truly and A Part of Your World. Yours Truly was probably one of my favorite books of the year. It was just such a well-written romance. I found the characters just to be awesomely written, and the story was super, super sweet. And I loved Jacob, just his whole story, and the anxiety representation in that book was probably the best I've ever read, actually. And then I also really liked Part of Your World, probably not as much, but it was still a really, really fun read. This one has just summertime written all over it. I think there's a bit of like fake dating, which is a trope I really like. And yeah, she's just become an author that I really want to read more from her. I just loved those 2 books, and I know she's got quite a bit on her backlist of different romances to read. So hopefully I'll read a bunch from her, but I'm definitely excited for this one. And then we have The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. That's going to come out April 9th. I'll be honest with you, I don't even know what this book is about. I just love Leigh Bardugo. She's another just automatic buy author for me. I know it's going to have a fantasy elements to it. It says it's actually a historical fantasy set during the Spanish Golden Age, so that sounds awesome. There's a lot of creepy vibes from the cover. I absolutely loved, just like everybody else, I absolutely love Six of Crows. I was shocked that I didn't read it sooner in my reading journey. It just changed me. I enjoyed that book so much. All the characters, oh my god. And then the sequel, Crooked Kingdom, was an intense ride. I was just in tears by the end of it. I might reread that duology sometime this year because I read it so fast. I just freaking ate it up. It was such a good series. I also really liked Ninth House. I didn't think I was gonna like it for whatever reason when I read the cover. I just kind of wanted to give it a chance and see what it was about. And it was great. Hellbent, I liked a little less than the first book, but they were both really great. So I just assume this book's gonna be fantastic. And yeah, she just has a very unique way of writing, and it's just gonna be a very interesting, probably gothic-y horror type of book, which is going to be fun for this year. Next up, we have A Promise of Peridot by Kate Golden, and that comes out April 11th. It is the sequel to A Dawn of Onyx, which is a book I stumbled upon last year. I generally don't read books that are large, like are part of a larger series. When not a lot of the books are out. So it was kind of random that I just decided to pick this up. I wasn't sure if I wasn't really sure what it was. I hadn't really heard anyone talk about it. And I really had no kind of preset anything thoughts about it. And I just absolutely loved it. And now I'm just waiting for the second book to come out, because it's a book that I actually think about quite often. The first book was about Erwin. She is a healer who gets captured by the vicious King of Onyx. And he wants to keep her because she has healing abilities, which is really useful for him and his people. She does it to protect her mother and sister and brother, because her brother got into a little trouble, and she kind of sacrifices herself in the beginning of this book. And then we have a great enemies to lover romance. And then the way this book ended was just amazing. I definitely wanted more. I really liked the world and the magic in it, so I have high hopes for this series. And yeah, I can't wait for April to come so I can read the sequel. And then we have Funny Story by Emily Henry. And that comes out April 23rd. April is going to be an insane month. So Emily Henry has become just an automatic buy author for me. This is another romance. It's about a pair of opposites with the wrong thing in common. And I'm not even going to read what the rest of it's about. I just know I love Emily Henry's writing style. Beach Read is one of my favorite books of all time. I read it a few years ago when I wasn't really reading anything, and I just fell in love. I also really love People We Meet on Vacation is another good one. Book Lovers wasn't my favorite by her, but I really still liked the story a lot. And then I just read Happy Place that came out last year and really liked it. I just love her writing style. Her romances always get me. And yeah, like I said, Beach Read is just one of the best books I've ever read. And Funny Story is just probably going to be another amazing story by her. I'm assuming it's going to be a 5-star read for me. I'm scared to say that out loud. And then we have our second, Ali Hazelwood. A forbidden secret affair proves that all's fair in love and science. This is going to be an awesome time, I can already tell. Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood, and that comes out in June 11th. And I don't have to say too much more about Ali Hazelwood. I sang her praises earlier. I love her romantic comedy writing. She's one of the few authors, similar to Emily Henry. The second I see her, I'm just like automatic buy. I think this book's gonna be really great. I've loved all of her other STEM, academia-based love stories, and they're all just really funny. She just does a really good job at writing funny characters, but also really sweet moments and just like great romantic stories. And she's got like a good level of romance, good level of spice, good level of comedy. It's just, they're always perfect. And I'm sure this one is just going to be as good. And then the last book on my list is Wisteria by Adeline Grace. Comes out August 20th. And this is the third, and I believe it's the conclusion to the Belladonna series, which is a really fun YA fantasy romance. I really liked Belladonna. I think I had kind of super high expectations going into it, and at first I didn't love it as much as I think everyone else did, but I liked the story enough that I wanted to continue. And the second book really got me. I was surprised that I liked it so much. I didn't even read it when it first came out because I just was kind of about the first one. But I'm super excited for Wisteria, the third and final, the conclusion to the story. Just like the gothic vibes and the fantasy vibes in the story is really fun. I think the thing I struggled with the first one, Belladonna, was just, it was just a little slow. The pacing was hard for me, and I think I had problems with the main character. Looking back, I just kind of didn't like a lot of the choices that she was making. But the second book, we got a few different POVs, and I ended up liking the story and the pacing a bit more. But yeah, it's just all vibes. It's also, I don't read a ton of YA. They can be very hit or miss for me. There's certainly certain YA fantasy stories out there that I absolutely love, and that some I can't stand. So I'm wondering if Stanza is her name, I believe. I wonder if she just fell into that, where I was just not vibing with it. Like maybe it left a little to be desired, especially because the premise sounded so awesome. Like Death is literally a character and she falls in love with him. That should be like a hit no matter what for me. So yeah, I was surprised that I was a little bored by it. And maybe just because it was not, spicy or didn't have too much going on there. But like I said, the second one turned me around and had a lot more going on and a few more POVs, which I think made the difference, because then when we went back to Stanza's POV, I wasn't really annoyed by her. She made more sense to me in the second one. So maybe the first one she was just finding her way. But I also was just so excited to read that because everyone was raving about it, that it could just be that it was just so highly anticipated that I just assumed it was going to be amazing. So then when I didn't like parts of it, it made it seem even less good to me for whatever reason. But I still really like the series, and I am very excited to get to read Wisteria, but we have to wait till August. But I think this will be a fun conclusion and a good end to the story. So thank you for watching my video. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and you'll be able to see some more bookish content from me. It looks like it's going to be a really fun 2024 reading year, so I can't wait to read and review all of these books we've just discussed. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.